I still can't believe that my father and stepmother actually wanted to kick me out of my own house because of my pregnant stepsister. I'm Jack, 28 years old. This incident truly shocked and confused me. The house I'm living in was bought by my mother with her hard-earned money. It's a 3-bedroom house in a quiet neighborhood. Although it's not large, it's full of memories. 5 years ago, my mother passed away. Before she died, she clearly stated that this house would belong to me. My mother was the only stable support in my life, especially after my father remarried. After my father remarried, he changed a lot. He no longer cared about me as before. After the divorce, he was negligent. Most of the time, he wasn't at home. Even when he only talked about himself and his new wife. It seemed that he only showed a little concern when something was beneficial to them. My stepmother and her daughter, my stepsister Ailey, is 25 years old and pregnant. In fact, her pregnancy itself is not the problem. What I can't accept is her extreme sense of entitlement. She always feels that life should give her everything she wants. And my father and stepmother have been spoiling her like this since the beginning. As long as it's something she wants, she can get it. A few months ago, Edreli's boyfriend left her. I wasn't surprised because that guy always seemed distracted. But in Ellie's eyes, she was always the victim. I heard about this from my father, who said that Edreli was very sad and needed family support. So, my father and stepmother immediately got involved, took her in, cooked for her, and comforted her. I understand that she's family and is going through a difficult time. However, one day, my father called me to have a chat. I had a bad feeling and knew that this would definitely not be a pleasant conversation. When I arrived, I found that the situation was even worse than I imagined. My father was sitting at the head of the table, and my stepmother was beside him with her usual smug expression. My father said, "Son, we've been thinking that Ailey needs a stable life now. Our place is getting more and more crowded with the baby on the way." I frowned and thought to myself, how could this be possible? This house was left to me by my mother. How could you have such an idea? But I still said slowly, "Okay," while staring at them closely. Then, my stepmother continued with her sickly sweet voice, "Dear Jack, we were thinking that since you're living alone in such a big house, it would be better if we moved in. You could go and live in a smaller place, like an apartment." I widened my eyes, couldn't believe what I was hearing. Wait, what? How could this be? My father nodded as if this was the most natural thing in the world. "Jack, you don't need such a large space. You're single and have no children. It would be easier for you to move out, and Everally needs more rooms for the baby. We've already found some places for you in case you're interested." So suddenly, without any negotiation or advance warning, they actually wanted me to leave my own house, the house my mother left me, just so that Al-Ali could live in for free because her boyfriend abandoned her. I was speechless for a moment, my heart filled with anger and grievance. This is my home, the home my mother left me. How could you do this to me? After a while, I said in a trembling voice, "You can't be serious." My stepmother's smile froze for a moment, but she quickly recovered. "This is just a suggestion, dear. We thought you'd be willing to help when the family needs it." I couldn't believe it. I laughed, but not because it was funny. It was crazy. "You want me to move out and let Ali live here with the baby? What if she finds a new man or doesn't like it here? Do you expect me to give up everything?" My father quickly chimed in, "Son, we're not asking you to give up. Think about the baby. This is the right thing to do, right? The baby, the unborn baby. Suddenly, this baby is more important than the fact that this house is mine. What about my life? My job? I've built my life here and made this place my home. But you want me to give up all of this?" I roared in my heart. Just then, Areli walked in with the smug expression that I had already hated. She looked at me, then at my father and stepmother, and I immediately knew that she was involved in this from the beginning. "Jack, you're not short of money to move. You have savings, don't you?" she said, crossing her arms over her growing belly. I gave her a fierce look that could melt steel. "What does that have to do with it? This is my house, not yours, not my father's. It's mine." Areli huffed, and for a moment, her mask slipped. "Don't be so selfish. You don't have a family to consider." "I do. Selfish," I said angrily. "You are the ones asking me to give up my home." My chest tightened with anger, but I still tried to keep my voice steady. Just because I don't have children doesn't mean my life doesn't matter. Things quickly got worse. My stepmother jumped in and accused me of being heartless, saying that I didn't help the family. She even said that my mother would be disappointed in me. This statement deeply hurt me. and I completely lost my temper. "Don't you dare bring my mother into this!" I roared and stood up so fast that my chair almost toppled over. She left me this house because she knew you would do something like this. I saw how you treated her and how you pushed her out of my life. You have no right to talk about her." There was a moment of silence. I could see my father's face turning red, but as always, he remained silent and left the difficult conversation to my stepmother. "We just wanted to help," my father said weakly. "Help," I scoffed. "Is this called helping? Pressuring me to give up my house with guilt because your precious daughter messed up her life. This is not helping, Dad. This is manipulation." Angrily spoke up again, her voice filled with entitlement. "This is not manipulation. You're overreacting. I need this house more than you do. You can find somewhere else and you'll be fine, bah. You won't succeed." "I won't give up this house," I said firmly and turned to leave. "This conversation is over, bah." But it wasn't over. In the following weeks, the pressure kept increasing. My father and stepmother kept calling and showing up at my house unannounced, trying to convince me in various new ways. Airline kept playing the victim, saying that she was under a lot of stress and needed a stable environment for the baby. They even showed me listings of nearby apartments in case I changed my mind. But I didn't. Then, things reached the boiling point. One afternoon, I came home from work and found that the front door lock of my house had been changed. I stood there, staring at my own door in disbelief. I tried my key again, but it didn't work. How could they do this? This is my home. How could they be so excessive? I growled in my heart. At first, I thought I was going crazy, but then I saw a note stuck to the door. "We changed the lock for Ailey's safety. Please contact us to discuss this." Her stepmother's name. At that moment, I was completely furious. I called my father and angrily asked him what was going on. "Dad, how could you change my lock? This is illegal." He tried to brush it off, saying it was temporary and just waiting for us to work something out. But I didn't believe him. I threatened to call the police, and then his tone changed. He began to beg me not to, saying it would be ugly and that we should solve this as a family, but I wouldn't back down. I told him directly that if the lock wasn't changed back by the end of the day, I would report the trespassing to the police. Things developed quickly after that. The lock was changed back, but the damage was already done. I could no longer trust them. I started to look for legal ways to ensure that such a thing wouldn't happen again. Just then, my lawyer told me something unexpected. During our conversation, I mentioned that I felt they were trying to take the house away from me. My lawyer warned me that my father had been looking into challenging my mother's will a few months ago. He hadn't filed anything yet, but he had consulted a lawyer about trying to declare the house as family property instead of my inheritance. I was furious. It turned out that they had planned all this long ago. They thought they could manipulate the law and force me to give up my home. But my lawyer assured me that my mother's will was airtight. They had no chance. The next day, I confronted my father. "Dad, so you've been planning to take my house away?" I asked angrily, my voice as cold as ice. His face turned pale, but he didn't deny it. "Son, I didn't want it to come to this," he muttered. "But she's in a difficult situation. She needs the house more than you do. It's for the baby." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "You were going to take the house my mother left me away from me for your stepdaughter, and even take me to court." He couldn't even look me in the eyes. This was the most painful part. My own father didn't dare to look at me after betraying me like this. "I didn't want it to develop like this," he said softly, "but you're not being fair. Ailey is also family. You have to understand. I just wanted to make sure she and the baby are okay." By taking everything from me, I shouted angrily, "You have no right to decide what's fair. You want to take the only thing my mother left me just because angrily made mistakes. You've ignored me for years and now this. You're unbelievable." Listen, I know it's not fair." He finally looked at me, but there was no real regret in his eyes, only helplessness. "But I thought you could find another place. I thought maybe you'd understand later." "I'll never understand," I said coldly, "and I'll never forgive you." He wanted to say something else, but I didn't want to hear any more excuses. I turned and walked out, slamming the door behind me. That was it. Our father-son relationship was over. In the following weeks, I made sure they couldn't do anything else. My lawyer helped me secure everything, my house, my finances, everything. I made sure the house was fully in my name and they had no way to take it. I even considered getting a restraining order, but the lawyer said not yet, unless they escalated. Just when I thought everything was over, I was wrong. One day, Ellie showed up at my door as if nothing had happened. It was as if we hadn't gone through those months of manipulation and lies. She stood there looking at me as if I were the bad guy. "Jack, I really don't understand why you're being so difficult," she said frustratedly. "I thought the family should stick together." I stared at her in astonishment. "Difficult? I'm being difficult. You tried to steal my house and now you say I'm the bad guy." "Steal? Difficult? Are you crazy? It's not like you can't move. I really need this house for the baby." Here we go again. Everything is about you and your baby. I shook my head in disbelief. "Have you ever listened to yourself? Do you realize how entitled you sound?" Her face tightened. She wasn't used to being called out. Entitled. "Seriously, I'm about to be a single mom and all I'm asking for is a little help. You act like I'm asking for something huge. All I need is a roof over my head." "I'm not giving you anything," I said firmly. "This is my house, the house my mother left me. You can't take it away." She glared at me and turned away. "You'll regret this. Dad already thinks you're heartless. You're pushing everyone away for a stupid house." I laughed coldly. "Whatever, I don't care. I won't give up this house." I closed the door and felt a sense of relief. Finally, it was all over. Although losing the affection of my father and stepmother hurt me, I kept the house my mother left me. This was my last line.